i.e. London, December 1952. It was a cold winter morning. William, wrapped in an old leather jacket, walked to work through the narrow streets near the Thames. The sun had risen, but it was impossible to see its heat or light. A choking fog had enveloped the city since early morning. But this was not the kind of fog he was used to. It was thicker, darker, and choking. It was harder than ever to breathe. As William walked, even the engine noise of the passing buses seemed to be drowned out by the fog. The air was so heavy that he could barely hear footsteps a few feet away. Well, he said to himself, it will pass in a few days. Londoners were used to this kind of foggy weather, weren't they? But this fog was different. With every breath, a burning smoke filled his lungs. It wasn't just the cold air or the dampness of the Thames. There was the heavy, acrid smell of coal smoke in the air. It was a mixture of poor quality coal burned in houses and the smoky fumes from factories and vehicles. As the clock approached noon, the streets were in chaos. Buses were stopped, cars abandoned on the side of the road. Traffic lights were barely visible. As William tried to reach the office, he heard a scream. The fog was so thick that a woman crossing the street had been hit by a horse-drawn carriage. No one could get to her in time. It wasn't just accidents that threw the town into chaos that day. People began coughing strangely, including William. Each cough called for another, and a searing pain filled his lungs. When he returned home from work, his neighbours told him that an old man had fallen ill from the morning air. "This is no ordinary fog," said his wife Elizabeth. "My mother called and the hospital is full. It's full of old people and children who can barely breathe." Several days passed, but the fog continued to hang over the city. Even the dim light of the gas lamps was not enough. The air was so heavy that it seeped into the house. William's little daughter Anna coughed all night. In the morning she would not get out of bed. When she went to fetch a doctor, under Elizabeth's helpless gaze, the same deadly fog still hung over the streets. Finally, on December 9th, the wind blew and the fog lifted. But a terrible record remained. Thousands had died. London was silent in mourning. As William placed a flower on his daughter Anna's grave, he still tried to understand how it had grown so large. Hello everyone. Today we're going to look behind the scenes of the Great London Smog of 1952. We need to understand not only the consequences, but also the causes of this tragedy that claimed thousands of lives, because it shows what a disaster pollution can be. First of all, this fatal event has its roots in the Industrial Revolution. Beginning in the 18th century, London became a rapidly industrialising city. As factories surrounded the city, large amounts of coal were used to meet energy needs. Coal was the most common source of energy at the time, but this energy source also released large amounts of carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and other toxic gases into the atmosphere. But why was this polluted air so deadly? In December 1952, a cold snap and high-pressure system hit London, trapping the city. Smog, which normally rises and dissipates in the atmosphere, could not rise this time. Instead, a thick layer of smog formed over the city. What is smog? Smog is a combination of smoke and mist, but this is no ordinary smog. Coal smoke from the chimneys of factories and homes, vehicle exhaust and industrial waste were the basis of this smog. The lack of air movement has allowed all these pollutants to accumulate over the city. Another important reason was the quality of the coal. At that time, England was using low-quality coal. This cheaper coal produced large amounts of sulfur dioxide and particulate matter when burned. People continued to use this coal extensively to heat their homes in cold weather. The smoke from each chimney added to the toxic mix in the air. And of course, traffic made things worse. At the time, vehicles in the city emitted large amounts of carbon monoxide as a byproduct of their fuel. This gas made the already polluted air even more toxic. Finally, government negligence also played a major role in the disaster. At the time, environmental protection laws were either non-existent or woefully inadequate. Factories and power plants continued to pollute the air unchecked. People were not sufficiently informed about the consequences of these pollutants. Ultimately, the Great London Fog demonstrated how man-made pollution could combine with nature to create a catastrophe. It was caused by unchecked industrialisation, low-quality energy sources, and inadequate environmental policies. We must learn from such tragedies. Because air pollution is still one of the biggest problems, not only in 1952, but also today. Today, it is up to all of us to protect our environment and adopt a sustainable lifestyle. Clean air is not a luxury, it is a necessity for our survival. See you in the next video. If you found this information interesting and useful, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like this video. Thank you very much.